Hello and welcome everybody to a brand new episode of r/ProRevenge. My name is Ryan, the official host here on Reddit Voice, and I look forward to bringing you guys today's top stories. Before I do though, I'd really appreciate it if you could hit that subscribe button as well as have notifications turned on. That way you could stay up to date with all the latest and the greatest. Our first story of the evening is by user Corvin. It's 1 month old and it's called Time for My Own Tale of Revenge. It was either here or over on Malicious Compliance that I saw a post that reminded me of this tale, which happened quite some time ago now. Apologies in advance for the long read. Many years ago, my now ex-wife and I decided to upgrade from the small single-story home we were in and find something with more space for us to spread out. We had her late-teen son living with us, our 3 Rottweilers, plus I needed a dedicated study for my work. I'm in technology and often worked from home. After months of searching, we found our dream home. Beautiful, 2-story, 4-bedroom plus study, with huge amounts of space everywhere. Seriously huge. The laundry was bigger than my bedroom growing up. This quality of everything was amazing. Square set walls, no cornices, polished Tassie oak flooring, floor to high ceiling windows in the living room, and 2 walls comprising commercial-grade bistro doors that opened up an entire corner of the house onto the covered, outdoor, entertaining area. The standard of the build was no surprise. This was a display home up until it landed on the market. We were to be the first people to live in it. I'm going to gloss over months of details and pain, but we had problems with the place from day 2. Literally. On night 2, the plumbing under the ensuite shower gave out and leaked through the kitchen ceiling underneath it. A couple weeks later, during the monster storm, 3 of the light fixtures upstairs started leaking water. A month later, we noticed rust starting to show through the rendering on the corners of the house. There were heaps of smallish, easy-to-fix problems, but the kicker was that the balcony adjoining the master bedroom at the front of the house actually started to sag down, to the point that it was unsafe to go out there due to risk of collapse. We were mostly amenable and nice through most of this. The vendor, also the builder of course, was a small business, and we had no interest in making his life any more difficult than it already was for a small business owner. But conversely, we were pouring a lot of our hard-earned into the mortgage, and we wanted what we paid for. But for his own reasons, the builder just kept making it difficult to get things fixed. There was a seemingly endless list of excuses for not turning up at the agreed times. A non-stop torrent of blame directed at his subcontractors, and just plain poopy behavior, like dodging our calls and not responding to our emails. Of course, we started proceedings with our state's Consumer Affairs Department. After all, we were entitled to a statutory 7-year warranty on a new home. But that process takes time. Time throughout which we were forced to endure issues like water leaks, a dangerous balcony we couldn't use, and a whole host of other issues that meant we weren't enjoying our home. There shouldn't have been any dispute about his responsibility to fix these problems. He just chose to be a dick about it and make us go through the government process, presumably thinking we would give up before he was forced to do anything. At around the same time, we started getting the occasional knock at the door, only to open it and find a couple standing there with a brochure in their hands, and our house pictured on the front. The first few of these conversations ended with us politely explaining that it was no longer a display house. It was our home. Without exception, they all apologized profusely and went away. After a month or so of this, I started to wonder, how was it that people still thought our house was a display home? I went looking and discovered that the builder's website still had our address listed for display. Despite repeated calls and emails, they steadfastly refused to remove our address from their website. This irritated me greatly, as these people would often come knocking on weekends because that's when people go house shopping. But for our pleas for the builder to update his site, it simply fell on deaf ears. Enough was enough, and an idea had formed. Did I mention I was in technology? First thing I did was scrape their website and set about the task of creating my own version of it, using their exact look and feel. I highlighted every single problem we had found with the place. Every glamour shot was replaced with shots of the exact same feature, but showing the problems we had. Rust showing through the rendering, water leaking from the light fixtures, close-ups of the sagging balcony, you get the idea. By the time I was done, I had felt was the perfect alternative of their site, one that highlighted every single defect in the home, as well as calling out the problems we had in dealing with the builder. I even included testimonials that were simply copies of the BS emails and texts we received from the builder, avoiding his responsibilities and making lame excuses for not fixing our problems. The headline testimonial was the one where he responded with, "So just don't go out onto the balcony," when I pointed out the clear safety risk it presented. After getting a lawyer friend to check through each page to make sure I wasn't opening myself up to some form of legal action, he helped me change a few sections, chuckling the whole time. I put the site up for hosting on some cheap and cheerful hosting provider Google told me about. Offshore, of course. I also registered a close but not close enough to be sued domain name to reach it. The next step was to create some actual collateral for execution of my plan. After all, there was no point of going through all this effort unless I was actually able to direct people to the builder's website. So I took a copy of the brochure for our house that the builder had conveniently left a few of behind in one of the kitchen drawers, and set about creating my own version of it. Similar principles as the website, no contact information except the website address, my website address. By this time, I'd made good friends with a few of my neighbors, and we had taken to sharing a beer or two on most nights on our front lawns. Wouldn't you know it, one of them was the manager for a local print shop. Given he already knew what hell we had been through with the builder, he took very little convincing to print a runoff of my brochure for me, on beautiful paper stock, nice, glossy, and professional. I think it cost me half a dozen beers. Then came the final step in my plan. I waited for eager couples to turn up on my doorstep, eyes wide open in wonder of the beauty of the home they were going to pay the builder for their very own copy of. For the next 6 months or so, whenever one of these couples would turn up and knock on my door and explain their purpose, I'd let them know that this model home was selling so quickly that the builder had asked if I could hand out his updated brochure so potential buyers could go online and look up whatever the current display home address was. I don't know how many brochures I handed out of the 100 my neighbor printed for me, probably only had 2 or 3 dozen left, but I know I also handed a bunch out to mates so they could have a laugh. I'd estimate close to 40 prospective buyers got a copy of my brochure, and I reckon at least 15 to 20 of those came back to thank me for warning them. A few of them had already signed conditional contracts and managed to get out of them one way or another. I don't know what happened to that builder in the end. I split up with the missus not too long after, and sold the place not too long after that. At the time of writing this, the builder's website's gone. The domain still appears to be registered in the company's name, and their state business registration still appears to be active. As best as I can tell, he's no longer the last known address for the company. And I can't find any mention of the company online that isn't at least 6 years old. Hopefully, this effer's out of business now. And hopefully, the few dozen people I helped sidestep the pain of dealing with him were the beginning of the end of his crappy little enterprise. If you stayed this long, thanks for reading. Cheers. Edit. Dog tax. Our second story of the evening is from Ghost Dog 805. It's 3 months old and it's called Too Lazy to Do Your Jobs. Well then, take care of the boxes. A bit of backstory. This was during my time that I was working in retail. Every day, my department would get pallets of merchandise that needed to be stocked. Usually, after my coworkers and I would leave for the day, just before closing, I would work closing one week, opening shift the following week, weekends off. During that time, we would have several groups of overnight coworkers assigned to different departments to stock merchandise brought on the delivery trucks, and then to put any overstock in the back, clean up the cardboard boxes. The opening shift would take care of any overstocked pallets the overnight didn't have time to get to. Every week, each group of overnight employees would be rotated to different departments. Unfortunately, there was one group of overnight employees that had a bit of a reputation for being lazy, and those guys were assigned to my department for the week. At the time when this happened, I was working my opening shift, years before the outbreak. The wrongs being done during the week wasn't so much being done to just me. It was being done to my other coworkers in my entire department. So this was pretty much a group effort. On with the story. My coworkers and I get to our department to find 4 pallets of merchandise, saran wrapped, labeled as overstock. We double checked the pallets and the shelves to find out that it needed to be worked. We were pissed. By that time, the department manager and supervisor found out, and they were absolutely livid. So we ended up working the merchandise, putting them on the shelves, and I was getting ready to start breaking down the boxes when I got this wicked idea. My idea was to stack all of the empty boxes like they were full, wrap them up and label them as overstock, but I wanted to get the approval from my supervisor first. When I talked to my supervisor, I mentioned what I wanted to do. My supervisor chuckled at the idea, approved it, and explained what had happened to him last year. Apparently, a year before, the overnight employees played a prank on him. On April 1st, they left 2 pallets of merchandise wrapped up and labeled as overstock. He said he double-checked only to find out that all of the boxes on the pallets were empty. He gathered all of us in the department, explained what we were doing, and we got to work. The supervisor explained that if it should happen again, we should inform him, work the merchandise, restock the empty boxes as if they are full, wrap them, label them as overstock, and leave the pallets for the overnighters. Unfortunately, my opening coworkers and I were done for the day. We were at 2 pallets. Fortunately, our closing coworkers were there when the supervisor explained what he wanted done. The next day, we walk in, and more pallets of overstock merchandise. Supervisor was informed, basically rinse and repeat, for the rest of the week. The last day of the week, however, we walk in, to our surprise, and there was only 1 pallet. It had 7 pallets stacked on top of it, with a handwritten "Go F Yourselves" label on it. We informed the supervisor. He informed us that the overnight group assigned to our department were terminated by the store manager. And there you have it, folks. The end of the epics. If you like these stories, be sure to leave a like on the video, as well as make sure you're subscribed with notifications turned on so you could stay up to date with all future videos. As always, my name's Ryan, the official host here on Reddit Voice, and I look forward to bringing you guys tomorrow's top stories. But that'll be tomorrow. So fucking wait until then, I guess. Or you could go binge the 86 million other videos we've already done.